Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Wednesday, the 15th day of October, 2025, and it seems like Hamas is becoming more isolated by Arab Muslim nations as Gaza is getting set for an extreme makeover. And so I think we have the answer to the question that we looked at yesterday. Remember the article from the Jewish News Syndicate about how they were worried that Donald Trump would just move on and not worry about, Hamas giving up their weapons, not worry about the hostages that are deceased, their bodies not being brought back to Israel, and just go on to do other things. Well, we found out very clearly that the opposite is true. He's definitely involved in this, getting the hostages back, seeing Hamas disarmed. So basically, it looks like that's what the future is going to hold now. So when we had this question, a lot of people were questioning it, and rightly so. But as my wife pointed out to me, Donald Trump, when he makes a deal, he expects the other side to keep their part of the bargain. That's who he is. When you read his book, The Art of the Deal, that's what he emphasizes, and so that's, it seems, what's going to take place. So let's look at the headlines. First, from Newsmax, Trump says the job is not done as long as Hamas holds the dead. Phase two begins now. And then from the Times of Israel, we mentioned this yesterday. Hamas did return four bodies, but only three of them are hostages. The fourth was a body of a Gazan who was dressed up like with an Israeli uniform. That's from the Times of Israel. Then Trump said Hamas must disarm or we will disarm them, perhaps violently. Well, there you go. That's from the Jerusalem Post. So hostages must be returned. Hamas must disarm. KT McFarland, who I really like, she worked in the first Trump administration. In an article interview with Newsmax, she said Hamas has no friends, no cover, and must disarm. And it's a good summary of what's going on right now. And then Lindsey Graham, there's an article from N12 JFEED talking about how Israel could go back into Gaza soon. And here's what we know because of the situation there with the clans that are fighting Hamas, with them assassinating people right in the street, executing them, not wanting to give up their guns. So something must happen. So Israel will have to probably go back soon, and with the help of the United States and maybe even some of the Muslim countries. We don't know. So this is where our headlines are at today. Really interesting as we begin our Wednesday with these stories. All right, let's go to Newsmax. The first story: Trump says, "Job not done as long as Hamas holds the dead." Phase two begins now. U.S. President says the mission of returning all of the hostages is not complete as long as the bodies of the last 24 hostages are still held in Gaza. President Trump said on Tuesday that phase two of his peace plan is underway, even as a major component of the first phase remains unfinished, namely the return of the dead hostages to Israel. Of the 28 dead hostages known to be in Gaza, four have been returned. Well, now it's seven, as Hamas has promised to return. They promised to return four more bodies Tuesday night. They did return four bodies that we're going to see with our second article, but one of them was not an Israeli. All 20 hostages are back and feeling as good as can be expected. This is Trump in all uppercase letters. A big burden has been lifted, but the job is not done. All uppercase letters. The dead have not been returned as promised. All uppercase letters is his posting on Truth Social. Phase two begins now, Trump said in a post yesterday afternoon. It was interesting. Again, thanks to Tom Hughes for inviting me on yesterday. We had a good time speaking about the issues. So I had to record, like we said early, and it's right after I recorded this, doing the second breaking news, these statements of Trump came out. So we're getting to them a little late, but better late than never, as it were. Um, Hanash, the article says Hamas initially underestimated Israel's resolve on the issue, but has since realized that Israel possesses detailed knowledge of the number and whereabouts of the bodies, making it harder for the group to deny responsibility, according to the report. So not only does Hamas know where the bodies are, Israel seems to know where many of them are at too, and so they won't believe the lie that Hamas said, well, we don't know where any of the rest of them are, we'll just call it a day. They're not buying that, neither is Donald Trump. And headline number two, Hamas did return the bodies of three hostages. The fourth was a Gazan who was dressed as a soldier, Israeli soldier. And so they were brought back to Kabir Forensic Institute in Tel Aviv, said in a statement. They examined the bodies and they determined that three of them were Israelis that had been murdered, Israeli hostages. So that makes seven now. Seven of the 28 that have been returned, a lot still to go. And Trump is not going to give up, neither will the Israelis give up till they're all returned. All right, so our third headline now: Hamas must disarm or we will disarm them, perhaps violently. Well, that's pretty strong language from the Jerusalem Post. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that Hamas disarm or the terrorist group will be disarmed. If they don't disarm, we will disarm them, and it will happen quickly and perhaps violently. This is what he said in a meeting at the White House when he was with Argentinian President Javier Milei. So Trump's very serious about this. The hostages must be returned, the bodies of the deceased hostages, because it means a lot to the Israelis, probably as much as any nation on the earth. That they're dead. They have the need to really bury their dead. And so that's number one. And number two, Hamas has to disarm, and both of those are non-negotiable. Trump says they're part of the deal before we can move on. We have to, have both of these things happen. So that's where we're at now. There's an excellent interview with KT McFarland with Newsmax. She is very good. I've always liked her over the years. And she basically summarizes in a real nice way, best I've seen. The headline, Hamas has no friends, no cover, and must disarm. This is from Newsmax. Hamas is isolated and collapsing under regional pressure as multiple countries have agreed to the peace framework requiring the terrorist group to disarm and withdraw from any role in governing Gaza. KT McFarland, former deputy national security advisor during President Trump's first term, told Newsmax on Tuesday. McFarland said Hamas has been abandoned by its former allies and faces complete dismantlement under the new regional agreement that demands that the group disarm and give up political control in Gaza. In an interview on the program Finnerty, McFarland said that the terms of the peace deal endorsed by the United States and multiple countries across the Middle East make clear that Hamas has to lay down its arms and cannot be part of the government going forward. Hamas has no friends, no money, no diplomatic covering, and I think the Palestinian people are happy to turn them in, McFarland said. That's what seems to be going on with these various clans trying to fight against Hamas, and it's not going over real well with the people of Gaza that they're executing anyone that would stand up against Hamas. Her comments came as President Donald Trump declared the Israeli-Hamas war officially over. Yeah, KT McFarland's a woman, by the way, in case you didn't know, with just the initials, you think maybe it's a male. No, she's female, and she's really, really great. Um, Monday's release of the last remaining living hostages in Gaza, along with Israel's simultaneous release of more than 1,900 Palestinian prisoners, marked the first step of what Trump called a 20-point plan to establishing lasting peace in the region. After so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, Trump said during recent remarks to the Israeli parliament. McFarland described two factions within Hamas, the leadership that's living it up in Qatar and Turkey, and the armed fighters within Gaza. So again, the contrast couldn't be more different. You've got the leadership there; they're billionaires. These leaders there, they're living it up in Qatar and Turkey in these five-star hotels with whatever they need. Their every need is taken care of. Then their fighters are there hiding underground in Gaza, getting killed, getting shot at, and running for their lives every moment. There are the guys who live in the Four Seasons Hotel who wear suits and have been negotiating, she said. Those are the guys that said, okay, fine, we'll agree. Why? Because their host Qatar and the Turks and others said, Hamas, you agree to this and you agree to it within 5 days or you're losing all support from us forever, McFarland said. As for the fighters in Gaza, she predicted they would be soon eliminated. They're dead men walking, she said, noting that Israel and regional allies are now coordinating closely on security enforcement. Trump has given them their chance, and if they don't lay down their arms, I think they're gone. Israel will do this in conjunction with other countries in the region. We're sending security forces. Remember, all those countries signed on to the deal, McFarland said, and this is true. So it looks like this is what's going to happen. And as we're going to see, with this last article, Lindsey Graham talking about Israel could go back, how this all fits in perfectly with last day's Bible prophecy. Israel could go back to Gaza soon, and here's what we know. Senator Lindsey Graham warns that Israel may intervene in Gaza again to protect anti-Hamas clans after the fragile U.S. brokered ceasefire as rival factions face executions and a deadly power vacuum that threatens civil strife. During an appearance on Fox News Hannity program, October 14th, 2025, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, by the way, say that as kind of a joke. So we'll just to let you know, I know his name's Lindsey Graham, but he would fight for amnesty. And so he got the title Lindsey Graham amnesty from Betty. So sometimes I can't help myself in that. Anyway, he discussed the fragile peace ceasefire situation in Gaza following the U.S. brokered peace. The ceasefire mediated by Donald Trump and signed last week ended over 2 years of conflict that began with Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, resulting in the release of the remaining Israeli hostages. Here comes the but leaving a power vacuum in Gaza after partial Israeli military withdrawal. In this vacuum, a weakened Hamas has been cracking down on rivals, executing at least 33 people, including members of anti-Hamas clans and civilians, in an effort to reassert control, raising fears of internal Palestinian strife or even civil war. Graham highlighted ongoing discussions within Israel about potentially reinvading parts of Gaza to protect and support these anti-Hamas Palestinian tribes and clans, such as the Popular Forces, Dagmosh, El Majaya, and Halas. There's at least 4 different groups there that are fighting against Hamas who have previously opposed or resisted Hamas rule. Israel has a history of arming and coordinating with some of these groups that to undermine Hamas, is confirmed by Prime Minister Netanyahu in June of 2025, though many clans declined deeper involvement due to their fears of Hamas retaliation. Graham expressed hope that these factions could independently rise up against Hamas, but warned that Israel is prepared to re-enter Gaza if needed to safeguard them, stating if Israel has to go back into Gaza to save these people, they will. Now, he advocated for a coalition of Arab countries, building on the Trump brokered deal's regional involvement, to instead send troops or take lead in dismantling Hamas and stabilizing the area, arguing this would foster greater long-term change in the Middle East than Israeli action alone. This aligns with broader revelations of secret military cooperation. We had this story between Israel and at least 6 Arab states, including during the war under a U.S.-led regional security network, which could extend to post-ceasefire efforts like training a new Palestinian police force or deploying international forces in Gaza. Here comes the however. However, public Arab condemnation of Israel's actions persists, and no formal Arab troop deployment has been announced as of October 15, 2025, amidst the ongoing tensions like Hamas's noncompliance on returning all deceased hostage bodies. So, bottom line, the theme of today's headlines is that everyone is fed up with Hamas. Whatever it takes to get them disarmed and out of any control in Gaza seems to have universal agreement. They don't want them there. They don't want to make any decisions. They want them disarmed and they want them gone. Now, of course, as we've talked about before, this makes sense biblically because Israel will eventually be lulled into thinking it is secured on its various borders when the prediction Russian invasion takes place. As we stress, we're a long way away from that. A number of things need to fall into place, including Russia's ability to fight a war, seeing they're bogged down in Ukraine. Libya, who is also one of the countries involved, called Put in Scripture. Their ability to raise an army is not there right now. The country is divided. The United States is not going to be a player in last days Bible prophecy. They're certainly a huge player right now in the Middle East. So these things have to get fixed, and they're moving towards that. That'll happen eventually. Now, remember this too, if you think about it, to rebuild Gaza, it's going to take a long time. There's millions of tons of concrete there that have to be removed with all the buildings that have been destroyed. If you're going to destroy the terror tunnels, this and that, the cleanup, just that part of it before you can even build anything should take months and months, if not longer. And so it's going to be a long time. And so if that takes place, if Hamas is removed, the threat of any attack from Gaza will be negated because of the rebuilding and because everything is in the process of being reconstructed. So things are moving in that direction. So we see how that could all fit. Now, for an explanation of what's going to go on, please see our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end, signs 9 through 11, where we talk about Ezekiel 38-39 and our book, the Ezekiel 38-39 Invasion. Free downloads from our website, Educating Our World. All right, that's it for now. We have so many stories today. I have another 4 or 5 already lined up to do on our second edition of Breaking News. So much is going on, and we'll see what breaks in the meantime. Never a dull moment, is there? All right, we've given you the latest. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.